Welcome to the Rudick Report. Today is Friday, April 7th, 2023. If you can, please support this channel by buying me a cup of coffee or by visiting my affiliate links. Your help is greatly appreciated and helps us to continue to provide content. Our banking system is teetering over a cliff right now, and if things get any worse, our country, our banking system as it exists today will collapse. With inflation running rampant, with massive layoffs happening, people just don't have the money to put back into the economy. Even those who are working with steady incomes, who want to take out loans for homes or cars, are finding the process extremely difficult. All these banks continue to bleed money. They are implementing strict controls and criteria for loan approvals. Essentially, it means that banks are getting very tight with their money. Remember that there is indeed a liquidity crisis in the banking system today, and that liquidity comes from its depositors. It means that banks are writing fewer mortgages and fewer car loans, fewer commercial real estate loans, and fewer credit cards being issued. If you haven't paid much attention to the recent bank failures that have taken place, you should now, as banks continue to lose deposits at an astounding pace. During the week ending March 15th, account holders withdrew $98.4 billion out of the U.S. banks. And if that didn't trigger your internal alarm system, it was just reported by the Federal Reserve that the following week ending March 22nd, another $126 billion was removed from the nation's largest institutions. The bank failures were front and center in the headline news recently, but the crisis didn't begin in March as they would have you to believe. The fact is that over the last year, well over $1 trillion has been pulled out of U.S. banks, and this has created a tremendous amount of financial stress within the banking sector. As mentioned yesterday in the Rudick Report, the banks are taking drastic measures to try and stop the bleeding by offering higher interest rates for depositors. This, of course, raises its own issues for the bank, as it will make them less profitable. So it's a catch-22. Do nothing and lose customers to the point where they will have to sell assets to cover withdrawals, or offer higher rates to entice depositors to stay. This is what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. Customers withdrew $42 billion in one day, leaving the bank with a negative cash balance of $958 million, and it forced them to sell their assets to meet the demand for the high rate of withdrawals. When lots of depositors start pulling their money out, banks can be forced to sell assets in order to have enough cash. This scenario is now rampant in the banking system, and banks are sitting on a mountain of unrealized losses. So what exactly is an unrealized loss? Generally, an unrealized loss is a decrease in the paper value of an asset that has not yet been sold. So for example, if an investor purchased 1,000 shares of a stock at $10 and then it trades down to $6, since he paid $10,000 for the initial investment, but now it's only worth $6,000, he has an unrealized loss of $4,000. Recently, it was reported that banks in the United States are facing unrealized losses of $620 billion on the bonds that they are holding due to rapid rising interest rates. But now we are being told that it is actually $780 billion. Now add to this debacle additional unrealized losses on their loan portfolios, and the unrealized losses that the banks facing are in the ballpark of $1.7 trillion. The report stated that they found that the total unrealized losses as of December 2022 were $1.7 trillion. The authors also noted that the losses from the interest rate increases are comparable to the total equity in the entire banking system. We are not out of the banking crisis yet. In fact, it may be just the beginning. Several financial analysts warned the Federal Reserve not to raise interest rates so quickly, but they did it anyway. And as a result, they have left our banking system in a precarious situation, teetering on total collapse. In fact, Nouriel Roubini is warning that most U.S. banks are technically near insolvency at this stage. Nouriel Roubini is Professor Emeritus of the Stern School of Business, New York University. He is also CEO of Roubini Macro Associates LLC, a global macroeconomic consultancy firm in New York, as well as co-founder of Rosa and Roubini Associates based out of London. He points out that a rise in interest rates has led to a decrease in the market value of banks' other assets, and when accounting for these factors, U.S. banks' unrealized losses amount to $1.75 trillion, a staggering 80% of their capital. According to Robini, the unrealized nature of these losses stems from the current regulatory regime, which allows banks to value securities and loans at their face value rather than their true market value, meaning that face value is the amount of money promised to the bondholder upon the bond's maturity. By contrast, a bond's market value is how much someone will pay for the bond on the free market at a specific moment in time. This is because when rates go up, bond prices typically go down, and when interest rates decline, bond prices typically rise. Robini asserts that most U.S. banks are technically near insolvency and are in far more trouble than most people realize. The facts are staring us all in the face. It's just that some are incapable of seeing it. We aren't just looking at a recession of our economy, we are potentially facing a complete meltdown of the banking system. People are always waiting to point to one specific event or catalyst that they can identify as a marker that caused the collapse. But we are in the collapse now, and it is happening in slow motion. It is a death by 1,000 cuts, and it will take some time to fully run its course. There are signs all around us if you're paying attention. We have seen so many layoffs in the recent months, and it's only April, and we have already seen around 130,000 workers laid off in mass job cuts so far. No doubt we will continue to see more. A new study survey by Gallup shows that 83% of American adults view current economic conditions as only fair or poor, and 72% think economic conditions are getting worse. Unfortunately, what most people don't realize is that everything we have been through economically so far is only the beginning of the birth pains and just the tip of the iceberg. What we are witnessing are the bubbles starting to burst. The job market, the housing market, credit card debt, the auto loan industry, the banking sector, you name it, they are all breaking down. The entire system is on the verge of a collapse. I have said it before and I will say it again and again. We are in collapse now, and it is escalating as countries continue to make plans to move away from the dollar. You need to prepare yourself and your family for what is assured to happen, as the banking industry will be changing radically within a very short time. The elite are planning to create a global financial crisis the likes of which the world has never seen. Their hopes are that out of the ashes of this financial crisis will rise their new economic order. If you pay attention now, you can see that everything is being engineered toward this one goal. If you can, get out of debt, get some cash in case the banks continue to have runs, and where possible, move into alternate assets like gold and silver. If you can only buy a coin here or there, that is fine, because once the manipulation stops and gold and silver takes off, you will be in a better place. Think about Venezuela. Many people have said they wish they had bought some gold or silver, as it would have helped them stay ahead of the raging inflation. The point is to take some sort of action. That can mean buying some extra gold or silver, some extra food or water, or any other items that you use, as they will no doubt get more expensive over time. Thank you for listening, and until next time, this is the Rudick Report.